Alright guys, it's finally time for me to release my "What could a green color scheme mean thematically in Persona 6 video. Why now? Well, we may be seeing an official announcement sooner rather than later. Now, in the case Persona 6 ends up not being green, or potentially not a single main color scheme at all, well, no biggie. I don't mind this video aging like milk since this is ultimately just speculation and brainstorming. And actually, I'd like to know what you guys think or can bounce off my thoughts down in the comments. But okay guys, so I feel like I have a lot of skin in the game for this topic because green is my absolute favorite color. And maybe I'm just being biased here, but I feel like culturally it has one of the most dualistic connotations within the public conscience, or more like the collective unconscious. I get that technically all colors are like this to a certain degree, but I think green really takes the cake with how it's represented in media. The general symbolism can vary so widely depending on the cultural lens you're viewing it from, as well as the particular shade. Sorry for this weird mic change. I didn't finish my script before I left on my trip. So I'll keep this video relatively short and just stick to throwing out a bunch of general ideas, and I'll leave the deeper cultural analysis for whenever we get an official reveal from Atlas. Now, there was this non-official rumor from a few years back that Persona 6 would take place at an art school. And again, take this with a huge grain of salt, but oh boy would this connect with the historic catastrophes between the 19th and early 20th centuries in the search for green paints and dyes. It'll also really fit with how the Hollywood film industry, a visual artistic medium with worldwide reach and influence, created this standard of associating particular shades of green with certain objects or concepts. Perhaps the most commonly explored thematic duality is nature versus technological advancement. And actually, on this note, I'd like to bring up Genshin Impact as a major source of inspiration for my brainstorming here. Yes, really. So long story short, of the 7 elements available in this game, dendro, which stems from the Latin root dendron, meaning tree, has always had a strong core identity representing nature, technology, particularly regarding computerization, more on this soon, and how a balance is necessary for human prosperity. The entire Dendro cast of characters trailers play around with this duality, and I'll be touching on them as they become relevant. But back to the natural world, it's something we simply can't live without. Without plants, we are losing a massive source of oxygen, and plant life, so leaves, grass, forests, and jungles, it's all predominantly various shades of green because of chlorophyll, the pigment that absorbs sunlight to drive photosynthesis, which produces oxygen, which allows complex life to exist on Earth in the first place. And we can heavily contrast this with how film and TV commonly depicts technological mishaps. The association of green with danger, popularized in visual media, is believed to have largely come out of a meeting between Western industry and the art world during the late 18th and early 19th centuries. You see, there were these 2 very popular shades of paint, Scheele's green and Paris green, that were tragically discovered the hard way to be incredibly toxic due to being formulated from arsenic. Hundreds of factory workers, painters, and consumers of this paint died in the end. And then there's the Radium Green paint that was formulated at the turn of the 20th century. This particular luminescent paint was painted onto watches, clocks, and other instrumental dials, objects that became known as radium dials. However, this came at a horrifying cost. The women who were responsible for painting these dials suffered acute radiation poisoning. The first of these factories opened in 1917, and by 1927, over 50 workers had died, and these mostly female factory workers became known as the Radium Girls. This is also around the time the Hollywood film industry was just starting/taking off, and this glowing radium green became cinematic shorthand for anything radioactive, toxic, or even just plain dangerous. Even Persona 5 makes use of this kind of imagery with Futaba's Necronomicon, the glowing green symbolizing this forbidden knowledge, given her persona is named based on the fictional grimoire from H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horror verse. Point being, Western media popularized green as this general symbol of toxicity and decay. I'll talk a bit more later about other negative connotations like green with envy. But first I'd like to make another thematic connection using Futaba. You know how anything to do with computers is oftentimes some kind of green color? There's a reason for this, since back in the 70s and 80s, early computer terminals were mostly black with green text, even if modern-day PC terminals aren't like this anymore. I also feel remiss not to mention that PCB, or printed circuit boards, i.e. the backbone of all modern electronics, including PCs and smartphones, have green as their standard background. And computers are more relevant than ever to our daily lives in 2026, for better or for worse. For one, there's the AI arms race ever since ChatGPT was released to the public in 2022, and that's been at odds with the preservation of our natural ecosystems given the explosion of all these new school data centers popping up across the globe. Since these LLMs, or large language models, require a lot more compute than data centers of yore, meaning these data centers require a ton more power and or water to cool. Not gonna lie, I've always been a fan of those plot lines of nature striking back against particularly greedy and or arrogant industrialists. Genshin did a recent take on this with Lauma's trailer. She had this mixture of druid and forest nymph imagery, aiding and guiding the forest animals to save their home, basically. That's the thing about oil and tech execs so egregiously extracting from and polluting the earth. Climate change will eventually bite all of us in the ass. I mean, it already is with the uptick in extreme weather events. We are reliant on the ecosystem for our own survival, and if we keep destroying it, it'll survive and live on in some way. Well, that might not necessarily be true for humanity as a species. And if the rumored P6 art school setting is true, the AI stuff seems even more prescient given generative AI having been trained unethically on so many artists' work without them receiving any compensation, as well as slowly sucking up clientele over time. Now please don't misunderstand me, I'm not a Luddite. Realistically, when it comes to AI, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. The only thing we really can do is collectively, as a society, fight for the kinds of safety regulations and programs we need to protect our creative work and communities from endless pollution. And taking green and smartphones, i.e. the mini computer in our pockets, Persona 6 could do a green with envy kind of plot point, especially in regards to social media and how everyone is shown each other's highlight reels and how we're all susceptible to the comparison trap if we're not careful. Western culture is what made the traditional association between green and envy. It was popularized by Shakespeare's works, which in and of themselves seemed inspired from ancient Greek and Roman beliefs of human personality. Long story short, it was believed a buildup of bile, which makes the skin appear green, was the cause of negative emotions like jealousy. I'm not trying to paint all Western cultures as some kind of monolith, like greens are traditionally significant in the Celtic nations, but ultimately I find it fascinating that green has so many negative beliefs and connotations and real-life horror moments surrounding it, when that's not really the case in other parts of the world. This brings me to the final major portion of this video. For one, there's the high value placed on jade throughout all of Asia. Historically, it was known as the imperial gem, and has a comparable significance to gold and diamonds in the West, so i.e. a symbol of wealth, power, and prosperity. Then there's bamboo. Bamboo forests are fascinating to think about if we contrast them with the temperate forest biomes native to Western Europe. Basically, what I'm getting at are trees in which the leaves are green, but the branches and trunk are brown. Meanwhile, bamboo is normally green throughout, and is a vital material to so many Asian civilizations. For example, strips of bamboo were used as basically paper, i.e. a writing surface in early China, particularly during the Han Dynasty. Oh, also there's green tea and matcha, one of Japan's most prized and culturally significant teas. Then there's the symbolism of this color in many SWANA cultures. So from this point on, I'll also be discussing some of the leaks about Persona 6 from this past week. I won't be including any images, you can look those up yourself if you'd like. So supposedly, the mascot for Persona 6 is named Nilüfer. This is a Turkish name meaning water lily, and also meaning precious in Persian, though ultimately derived from the Sanskrit word for blue lotus, Nilotpala. On this note, I'd really like to bring up how the actual Dendro Nation in Genshin Impact is inspired/based on the general region that was at one time ruled by the Persian Empire. I don't mean to imply these countries are a monolith, but these cultures all highly prize green in some way. For one, there's a shade literally called Persian green that's common in Iranian pottery and rugs. In Islam as a whole, green is associated with heaven and paradise. Then in Egypt, green is historically a symbol of life and rejuvenation. There are even these green amulets based on the goddess Wadjet that were given as protection against evil and to promote good health. Then there's Osiris, the Egyptian god of the afterlife, who is normally depicted with green skin. Meanwhile, in Hindu, which originated in India, the heart chakra is green, representing balance and equilibrium. So now this brings me to the leaked protagonist. He has blonde hair, so probably a Westerner, though I've also heard some speculation that he might be half Japanese. Either way, reminder of all the green connotations I covered earlier. This could be shaping up to be the most diverse Persona cast we've had so far, so thematically, what might this mean? Well, we're all raised under different impressions of the same exact thing, and it's often not until we experience a culture different from our own that we realize what we simply assumed our whole lives can mean something very different somewhere else. If that's the case for the color green, then what else could that possibly entail? In other words, perhaps Persona 6 will explore a theme centered on learning to respect people's inherent humanity, regardless of where in the world they're from. Here's to hoping that the green paint bucket truly meant something. But what do you guys think about these ideas? What are your ideas about green? Let me know down in the comments below. And big thanks to all my patrons and channel members for making this video possible. Come join us in the private Discord where we do fun things like reading club and watch parties. Finally, I'd especially like to thank my special fusion supporters: Big Clingy, Sam Bezjak, M. Meownalin, Malcolm Lowry, Jimmy Tapiz, Frank Sasaki, Phoenix Black, Weeping Blade, Meek Massacre, Tactical Salmon, Silverwind 847, and Anger Boda.